Well, of course there are. Half the planet lives on $2.50 a day. The challenge is the people that complain that they're the 99% against the 1% are actually the 1%. And you say, Tony, what are you talking about? Those people down there who were in those tents downstairs, a few years ago, and if you watch them typing on their iPhones and having a Starbucks drink, they think that they are really suffering. But in reality, if you're in poverty in this country, you're in the 1% of earners in the world. You're the top 1%. So if you really care about the 1%, you got to care about everybody. But the real challenge, I think, is not so much money as it is that the world has changed. If you are a blue collar worker, if you're an unskilled worker, meaning you're not tech oriented, you're not cognitively driven in your job, you're going to have trouble. And I don't care what the politicians say about bringing these jobs back. There are no jobs to bring back. And the reason is because technology is making labor less valuable. And that's why jobs don't produce as much unless you're high cognitive, high decision making, high tech. Those people have no problem. There's a 1% unemployment for people who make $100,000 or more. It's so tiny because they've learned to become more valuable. I always tell people the most valuable lesson I got from my mentor, Jim Rohn, was I asked, my father worked 2 jobs. We were always broke. We had no money for food. And we lived in a community we moved to, which was, I thought they were all rich and we were on the other side of the tracks. It was lower middle class, but compared to where we lived before, these people seem rich compared to us. And I just didn't understand it. And Jim said to me, Tony, it's not about the value of your soul, it's about the value of you in the marketplace. And your father's skills are not that valuable. He was an underground parking attendant, and he would take people's ticket and make change. Well, the research now shows, it's being done at Yale, it's being done overseas in England as well, and they found that 40% of all jobs they project in the next 10 years are going to disappear because of technology. It's going to be replaced by an algorithm, it's going to be changed. All these guys on Wall Street, you're seeing all these algorithms take over and they're getting rid of all these traders, right? It's changing radically in these hedge funds. There's 3 million truck drivers. Self-driving cars are here. In the next 5 years, they will be the standard, certainly within 7 or 8 years. Are you going to hire someone who can only work 8 hours a day and sometimes gets drunk or can make a mistake when you can buy a machine, write down the machine, and be in a position where it works 24 hours a day driving? But no one is telling these drivers this, and they have to retool now. So technology is the biggest challenge. Labor is less valuable because of efficiencies with technology, and it's going to get better and better for technology, which is scary when you think about what's going to happen for jobs. So I say to people, you got to participate in your own rescue. You've got to retool yourself. The idea that Bernie Sanders has of providing free education sounds wonderful, but the education he wants to do is community college. There are no skill sets in community colleges today, for the most part, that are going to prepare you for the economy or a job that's there. So what is that going to do? You're just going to waste more money, more time. We need to retool ourselves. The government's not going to do it for you. And a great leader in a company is retraining their people all the time. The training never stops, because that is the innovative, creative marketing edge, is your own people.
Most companies do less training today than they did 20 or 30 years ago.
It's crazy.
So where do you get the training?
I think they have to self-educate. I mean, I'm an example of that myself. You have to say, what's an area that I want to become masterful in? Because dabblers will never have any financial freedom. If you're going to run a company, you got to find what is your niche. What is it you're going to do better than anybody else? Every one of us individuals have to say that and then say, now where do I get that education? In a world that we live in today with the internet, where there's education from all over the world, from MIT, from Harvard, online, and there are people you can go to work for who you could become a mentee of. There's just so many approaches, but you can't have a standard education and expect to have an extraordinary life. It's not going to happen. The one breakthrough for all leaders is constant, never-ending improvement. And that means educating yourself and continuing to develop even greater emotional mastery, because that's what affects whether you execute or not. Breakdowns, it's certainly not something I experience, but it's not because I'm so talented or so brilliant or so fearless. It's just, you're like an athlete. You're an athlete. Yeah. You're in shape, right? You're not going to have a reaction in your body like somebody who doesn't take care of themselves. Right. So, I don't believe in emotional intelligence. I think it's useful, but I'm more interested in emotional fitness, because intelligence is a capability. Fitness is a state of readiness. Interesting. If you are fit, you can take that demand right now and you can deal with it. You can deal with that physical stress, that emotional stress. Same thing's true with psychological fitness, emotional fitness, right? So I'm pretty fit, and part of that is not because I'm so smart. Part of it is I've taught this for decades. I remember I had a woman who came to one of my seminars in her, I don't know, early 80s probably. And she would run in this room, 10,000 people. I think it was, she went to a couple of 10,000 person events. And she would get in this front row and fight her way through there. And she'd jump and go for it. And at one break, she came up to me, I was signing a book for her, and she says, she goes, Mr. Robbins, I've seen you at like 8 of these. She goes, I've seen you like when you're really, I know, I can hear your voice, you're hurting or you haven't slept. And she goes, you always seem to be so up all the time. How come you're so up? And I said, well, part of it is I attend all these seminars. So I'm teaching it. So there's a fitness of that. But there's also, I've buried 3 fathers and 1 mother, and, that affects your life. I've had a physician look me in the eye and say, you have a tumor in your brain. Wow. And so I've had those moments that when you've had extreme stress and you push your way through it, you build psychological muscle. It's like, it takes a lot to knock me off. In the early days, we didn't have $50,000 to keep the doors open. How do we do it? Then I had, graduated to $5 million. Then I graduated to a partner of mine who kind of didn't do things well, and I ended up owning $100 million because I had to take on his debts. $100 million. But when you do all that stuff, now my companies do $5 billion, a year. So you keep expanding what I would call really the circle of the threshold of your influence.
Sure.
Everybody has a threshold of control, and if you get beyond it, you kind of freak out. So it takes a little bit more. I can't.
So you don't have breakdowns.
I don't have a breakdown. Do I get pissed off or get frustrated or tired? Yeah, but a breakdown, honestly, no.
So how do you handle it if you get tired or something?
I sleep when I can. Okay, cool. I mean, it's honestly, it's pretty simple. But when I've had challenging times, I mean, I have so many tools.
Yeah.
I pull them out. And mostly, it's like you as an athlete. You don't just physically break down.
Right.
You take care of yourself. So
you're constantly training that.
I think most people don't train their mind and emotions. It's like I think the most powerful muscles to me are not physical. They're as strong as important as they are. It's like faith is a muscle, courage is a muscle, determination is a muscle, playfulness is a muscle. Passion unexpressed weakens. Faith untested gets smaller. Yeah. So I'm always, I call it deep practice. I'm always pushing myself to the edge, and pushing yourself to the edge makes you stronger.
I think I can boil it down probably to 3 or 4 words: money, power, ego, habit. That's a short answer. A friend of mine who is my friend until we have this conversation in academia, I've asked him once, I said, why evolution, for example? The DNA evidence, very recent, in the last 5 years, the DNA evidence no longer supports the theory of evolution as the mechanism for human origins. Evolution is a fact. And I want to be very clear about that. As a geologist, I've seen it in the fossil record, plants, animals, insects, some primates. Something happened 200,000 years ago, and the theory breaks down when it comes to humans. And the DNA shows us that. The DNA shows us very clearly that we did not descend from Neanderthal, for example. Their genome, we can now rebuild their genome and compare theirs to ours. We can actually, sounds like Jurassic Park, the movie. Science fiction, but it's science fact. We can pull the DNA.
You can check your percentage of Neanderthal in
We can pull the DNA from the bone marrow of fossilized remains of beings that we are supposed to be descended from and compare their DNA to ours. We didn't descend from Neanderthal. It shows that we did appear on Earth about 200,000
years ago.
Where
did we come from?
Right. Well, to answer the question, why aren't we sharing this? When I asked my friend at the university, I said, why can't you share this with your students? And he said, Greg, you don't understand. He says, if I shared that, he said, it would invalidate my 40-year career as a professor. And I said, no. I said, it would do just the opposite. It would demonstrate to your young students how valid and relevant science is, because it's designed to be constantly updated, and you're doing that. It wouldn't invalidate. He said, well, think how much money it would cost to change the textbooks. And I said, my brother, I said, you're living in the Stone Age. They're not using textbooks. You changed it on the server, and you've changed it everywhere. And he said, well, think of all my class notes I would have to change. And I said, well, that's your job. But that was an example for me of it's a habit. It's a habit, but it's also threatening. And this is why I think it's so important, Brian. It's more than a philosophical conversation. As we globalize, as we push ourselves together, and we see the fear of what that means, cultures coming together in different ways of thinking, we also see a rise in hate. And hate is only possible because of a way of thinking. Rachel Carson was an author in the 1960s. She wrote Silent Spring. She was one of the first environmental authors. about the use of the pesticide DDT back in the 1960s. And she made the statement, I read this when I was a kid, and it was so powerful. She said, "We only destroy the things that we don't value." We have been taught that human life has very little value through the theory of evolution, that we are a random process, genetic mutations. The textbook says that life is a behavior pattern that chemical systems exhibit when they reach a certain level of complexity. That's the definition of life that we're giving to our young people in school today. And it is such a sterile definition. It leaves no room for the specialness and the preciousness of life. And so our young people, through the video games that are very heartless, very violent, through the media, through the television, where are we instilling into our young people how precious and special life is? And if we're going to change that, when we begin to see what the DNA is telling us, it tells us something far beyond random genetic mutations is responsible for us. And that's, I think, where the change in thinking must begin.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question. That one of my answers for people, when they say, hey, how can I get better at detaching and controlling my emotions, I tell them to start training jiu-jitsu. Because you're going to get tapped out in jiu-jitsu. Your ego is going to get smacked around so hard, you're going to lose your mind. And what you, in the madder you get, the more aggressive you are, the more you're going to get beat down, and the worse it's going to be. So you have to learn to control your emotions, no doubt about it. And then what you have to do is you have to start practicing it all the time. You have to start paying attention to the red flags that go up. When I start raising my voice at you, I go, oh, that's your emotion, get mad. And for me, like the minute I feel some sort of anger, some sort of jealousy, some sort of frustration, most of the time I go, oh, you're getting mad, that's your ego. You're getting emotional about this. Take a step back and listen to what the other person's saying. Take a step back and try and see it from their perspective. Take a step back and try and understand what they're trying to say. Because sometimes, if you're not a very articulate person, you're just making me mad. It's only because I don't understand what you're trying to say. Take a step back. Let's talk through it. So pay attention to, I always talk about when you're sending an email to someone and you're typing like this, don't send that email. That's not a good email to send. That's an emotional email. Wait, write it out, fine, and then save it and read it later, and you'll realize, oh yeah, I was really mad about something, or I was really frustrated. So how do you do it? You practice it. You pay attention to your emotions and you get control over them. Have kids. If you have kids, you'll have to learn to get control of your emotions.
How do you gain influence and respect? Like, what's that process?
Very similar to when we talked about trust and building trust and giving trust. If I want to gain the ability to influence you, well, then what I have to do is give you the ability to influence me. And when I say, hey, here's what we're trying to make happen. Here's what I want to do. And you say, well, I think we should do it like this. You know what I should say? Okay, well, let's take a look at that. The more I allow you to influence me, the more open your mind gets for me to influence you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow you to influence me, and the more I allow that to happen, the more influence I'm going to have. Respect, same thing. If I treat you like you're a plebe, like you don't matter, you're not going to respect me at all. But if I treat you with respect and respect you, when you try and talk to me, I listen and I respect what you're saying and I try and understand it fully, then your respect for me is going to go up as well. So when you want to earn respect, give respect. When you want to earn influence, give influence. When you want to earn trust, give trust. All those three are related.
Whatever position you're at, you want to be the bull. And I don't care if you're in the mail room or if you're the person behind that camera, that I'm going to be better than anybody else with that camera, and I'm going to be the best mail carrier and the person who comes up and is the most organized and does it the most professional way. You can be the bull at any position. Position you're doing, and it's just telling yourself, I'm going to do this better than anybody else. I don't care what the job is. I don't care what you do. You be the bull at what you do. It's just the sport of this is what I do every day. And people say, why do you do this? And I just said, because what would I do? I mean, if I can't come to the office and solve problems and fight with everybody and conquest something, you know, conquer, then what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to sit home and die? I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. This is my basketball. This is my game that I play. This is my pickup Monopoly game, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I love going to the office and leading people and trying to conquer something. That's what I enjoy doing. It's sport. Totally, you're exactly right. This is steps to get to the next level. Now, if I don't pull any of that off, have I reached that point in life where I'm happy? Yeah. I don't feel like, after I bought the Houston Rockets, and once again, who gets to own 100% of their team in their hometown? There's probably not, of all the major 100 sports teams, there's probably not 5. So I feel very fortunate. So if nothing else is accomplished, do I feel pretty good? I feel okay. I really do. I really do. And I thank the good Lord and all the people that helped me accomplish it. But what you just said is happening. I'm taking the next steps right now to get to the next level.